Welcome back to another episode of the Coaster101 podcast. I'm Andrew Stillwell in North Carolina, and joining me this week, we've got another rotating cast of characters, but carrying over from last week's episode, John Stevenson in Tennessee. John, welcome back to the Coaster101 podcast. What's going on?
Thanks for letting me back in. I appreciate it. Usually they lock me out.
You know, again, you run the site, you pay the bills on the site, you come on the podcast anytime you want to come on the podcast. And also joining us, coming back to the podcast for the first time in several weeks, we've got Evan Scharf in New Jersey. Evan, what's going on?
Hey, pleasure to be here.
And last but certainly not least, up in Michigan, we've got Larry Treese. Larry, how are you?
Hey, doing good.
Wonderful.
Spent first coaster trip, was back, the day after 4th of July, and, probably seen some of my stuff posted on social media lately on it, so.
I love it. Very cool. Well, we are a roller coaster podcast. And so last week we talked all things Disney and D23 and had a disclaimer, an apology at the top of the show for people who listen to us for coaster content because we're coaster people and not Disney people, and then proceeded to talk about Disney for over an hour. This week, we're talking about coasters because we're right in the throngs of announcement season. We've had some really strong announcements so far, and to be perfectly honest, we're not going to sugarcoat it. At least here in North America, it's been a little bit of a dud of a coaster year. There were some big announcements. 2023, obviously, we know the situation, what's going on at Cedar Point with Top Thrill 2. I take that back. We don't know the situation. We know that it's currently closed and they're working on fixing it. That's what we know, just like everybody else. There were some other coasters announced, Georgia Surfer and Flash Vertical Velocity, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit, that were announced for 2024, have been pushed to 2025. So your big winners for new coasters in 2024 are Iron Menace, which I'm hearing is having a little bit of downtime right now of its own. So I don't know what we did, if we've cursed the coaster year, but with any luck, the wrath of Rakshasa Hindu gods will undo this curse for 2025. So we're going to talk new coasters in 2025, kind of run down some of the highlights, specifically in North America. No offense to anybody who happens to listen to this podcast in Europe, Asia, or elsewhere. We're in North America. That's kind of what we know, and we're honestly in the United States, but Canada's Wonderland and Alpen Fury looks awesome, so we're going to extend there as well. But to jump right in, we got to talk first about these new for 2025 coasters that were originally new for 2024. And John, I want to bring you in first because you're taking a little bit of credit for this, I think. I don't know. You were at Six Flags Over Georgia recently, and you posted a video, I think, on our Instagram or TikTok, somewhere on social media, that was basically lamenting, hey, the track is done. What's happening here? When is this going to open? So when you were on site at Six Flags Over Georgia, talk a little bit about what you saw as far as Georgia Surfer, and why do you think the park was going to have to push it to 2025?
Yeah, so not a lot happening. There was no train on the track. There were maybe 3 or 4 workers just kind of milling about. Lots of, the queue, I think they may have laid the concrete, but there was very clearly a lot of work left to be done. And so although the track was complete, that was definitely the most complete part of it. So, I was just documenting it, and I thought originally when I knew I was going to Atlanta that weekend, I thought, this was a couple months ago, I was like, oh, surely it'll be done or open something, but that was not the case. And then I think the Monday or Tuesday after I posted the construction update, they made the announcement that it was going to be a new for 2025 ride.
Yeah, and it is these things. We saw this a little bit with Six Flags Over Texas several years ago, and I feel like that was one that got pushed, I don't know, 3 years after its original opening date, wasn't it? announced in 2019, and then didn't open because of COVID, didn't open in 2021, and finally opened in 2022. I think that's right. I don't know if it's the water coaster thing or
Yeah, that was Aquaman.
yes.
Um, yeah, that was no, that one was a weird one because it was announced for 2020, delayed, but then the park went back and decided, oh, we're gonna add the turntable and everything, and made it a 2023 ride.
Yeah. And John, do you like looking at the construction site from what you could see? Do you think there's space if they were, maybe wanting to add that turntable after the fact?
I don't think so, and since it's a completely different manufacturer, I don't even know if that's an option. If that's something that Intamin offers,
Okay.
need to go look at the
Yeah,
manual.
we'll figure it out. The good news is it's going to open in 2025 in our new combined Six Flags world that we live in, where they're offering $99 all park passes after you pay like $3 a month for your membership. So, I mean, this is awesome news. We get to experience as many parks as we can. But another Six Flags park that delayed their 2024 opening, and Evan, I'll bring you in now, being the Jersey local that you are. Um, Flash Vertical Velocity, which was a first of its kind in the U.S., the Vekoma Super Boomerang. Have you been out to the park this summer? I haven't seen any construction progress or things. Last I saw, the track looked pretty close to complete, if not totally complete.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, the track is complete. Landscaping is pretty much all the way there. So I'm a little confused about what the delay is exactly. Maybe Vekoma does have turntable capabilities and they chose not to opt for it, and maybe they will for 2025. But I had a running theory that it was going to open by Labor Day, and then that would be used as a method to sell more Fright Fest and Holiday in the Park tickets. But clearly, that isn't the case, and it looks like that's going to be delayed a bit. So it's just a little weird when you have Iron Menace that opened in the region, that opened on time and was ready to go, and then by when that opened, Flash was barely built. I know that it was slightly going vertical, but it was not anywhere near completion. And then everybody kept thinking that it was going to be July 4th, and then that didn't happen. And here we are almost in September, and now it'll be next year.
So, are you saying that the workers at Six Flags Great Adventure were not working with any type of vertical velocity?
Apparently so.
Listen, I host the podcast. I can make the dumb jokes, John. Just keep the lights on for me.
I think I heard that the station also is like barely started on that too. So I don't. That was an odd thing.
Okay. I think, yeah, it's obviously, this has kind of been, I feel like, something that has been unique almost to Six Flags in the last couple of years, is like announcing a coaster saying, hey, it's going to open spring summer 24 next year. So the good news is we're going to get them, they're going to get them open. And first of all, I think both coasters are first of their kind coasters. I think the Yeneman Surf Coaster, is that a first ever at Six Flags Over Georgia? Is that right?
I think so. Yes.
Okay, so
Vekoma's Super Boomerang is the first of its kind in North America, because I believe
yeah,
there's one in China.
yeah. So again, we're dealing with kind of unique attractions that have either never been seen or never been seen in the U.S. These things happen. Again, prototype rides. They're prototypes for reasons, because one of them's got to be first. But looking forward to those opening later in 2025. But on the subject of coasters opening in 2025 that we believe will be opening, um, we're going to just run down some of our the recent coaster announcements that have happened. We're going to start at my home park of Carowinds. Not only are they adding a water ride, which is the first water ride in the park since 2019, they're adding the first coaster for families since, I believe, 2003 was the last coaster they opened specifically for families. And this is Snoopy's Racing Railway. Um, It's manufactured by Art Engineering. It's a clone of the roller coaster already opened at Canada's Wonderland of the same name. So it's a family multi-launch. It goes through the station two times, or goes through the track two times. I got a little bit of a behind the scenes look on this. I think now that the NDA is expired, I can talk about this a little bit, and this may get edited out of the podcast. I don't know. I'd have to read the NDA, but I got to work with the park a little bit about knowing what was happening, and they kind of gave us first dibs to release it into the coaster internet space, which we're extremely grateful for. But one thing I got to do was kind of go into the park and look. I was there before the park opened. I got to film this video, which if you haven't seen, go check it out on our Instagram or TikTok. I've learned that I talk way too much with my hands, which I'm even doing right now in a podcast that nobody can see. So that's how you know I have a problem. I think this is going to be a really, really good addition for Carowinds, and kind of a great addition to that Camp Snoopy area that they've put a lot of work into in recent years. I know we've talked a little bit on the show and on the website about family coasters, but what do you guys think about kind of this family coaster renaissance we're going through, and how do you feel like this coaster will you know benefit Carowinds?
I had no idea this was not a Vekoma. I thought it was. I've never heard of art engineering, so today I learned. But
Yeah,
to
they
answer,
are. Yeah, they were the same ones that opened up the one up in Canada's Wonderland.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I just watched a POV of that one. It looks fun. I mean, obviously, if I'm gonna choose between, I'm gonna choose something a little bit more thrilling. But I'm all for accommodating all levels of uh, thrill seekers and comfort levels, and I think they're a great way to introduce people to the more intense rides. And so I'm here for it as long as they continue to balance that with more of the white knuckle attractions, coasters. Then I don't see an issue with it.
Yeah, this is the it's a coaster at Carowinds, and I think it's the only other coaster other than Wilderness Run that has a 36 inch height requirement with an accompanied adult. So you can be 3 feet tall and ride this, and I think it's going to be a really great first coaster for a lot of people at Carowinds, and that's a park that cares a lot about its families. I mean, I speak knowing the people at the park. I know kind of the their their mission and kind of what they're looking for is the place for Carolina's family fun. And they've recently rethemed Camp Snoopy in the last several years. This is, again, if you want to go back to Coaster 101, there's a 50-year history in this area dating back to Hanna-Barbera and the Nickelodeon days. So I'm excited for these new additions. The water ride, I know we're not talking water rides, but that's going to be a very strong addition to that side of the park as well. A good way to kind of beat the heat without actually going into the water park, which um, I don't know if how you guys' summers have been. It's been about 1 billion degrees in North Carolina, so the
Yeah.
water ride is much needed here.
Pretty much been the same here.
Yeah, but we will now that I'm done waxing poetic about Carowinds for a little bit. So sorry, that's the way I am. That's the way I feel about it. Up at the Great White North, going from hot to potentially not as hot. We've got Alpine Fury, and this is a skyrocket model from Premier Rides, 3,200 feet of track, top speed of just over 70 miles per hour, and 9 inversions. And I don't know about you guys. I saw this coaster, I saw the announcement, I think it was on the 8th of August. I was blown away, and I don't typically get that way. Like, there's a good backstory here, but Evan, I'll start with you because I feel like you haven't talked in a little bit. What are your thoughts on Alpine Fury?
I mean, when you talk about the family coaster renaissance that's going on right now, I feel like Alpine Fury is the outlier for that. Especially like John was saying with the white knuckle thrills and Coaster Wars being over, I think this might be the jump that we see to get us back into the Coaster War era. I think by 2030, we'll see a lot of these battles going on that'll bring back the tallest, fastest, all of those um, accolades. So I think that this is going to be a huge win for Canada, for Six Flags, and especially that there really isn't a competing thrill coaster so far that we've seen as an announcement. I mean, I do have to say my only critique is that it's a very similar style of flipping over. It almost is 9 types of barrel rolls or doing that same type of motion. So I'm a little surprised that it isn't as varied, but nonetheless, I think it's going to be a great ride and going to do a lot of great things for the park and for these types of high thrill coasters.
Yeah, the one thing I saw that people were saying that was like it was kind of like the Star Fox meme is like do a barrel roll, and you've got Pepe the Rabbit who's like telling you to continue to do this. But John, Larry, what do you guys think? Alpine Fury, is it going to bring more people to Canada's Wonderland and kind of establish it as a thrill park? I mean, this is their 19th roller coaster.
Yeah, I love that this is really continuing the trend of Six Flags diversifying the coaster manufacturers that they use. I don't think anyone was expecting this. I don't think Premier has done anything like this in recent years. So I'm excited. I mean, I agree about the barrel rolls. I think they're a little handicapped by just the fact that it is more or less an out and back layout. So I think they could have been a little bit more creative, but just to see I'm looking at the overview right now, and just to see something that's so sprawling, um, I think is going to be really cool as you're walking down that main midway toward the mountain and just seeing it kind of in the sky. I love the color scheme. The pacing. I mean, I've watched the video so many times, it's been a while since I've watched an animation so much. So I'm very excited for it. It'll definitely get me back.
I did see a coaster enthusiast. I don't remember who this person was. It was one guy. So I promise I'm not picking him when I ask on this. He tweeted about the color scheme like 2 or 3 times when it was released because I think the POV and then the concept art, they had different color schemes. And he was like, well, which is it going to be? And it's like, you, you're getting a 9 inversion launched roller coaster that comes out of a mountain. Like, can we
I mean,
not worry about what color it is?
I agree. I thought about that too. I hope it's the more frequently seen one, just the white track and the light blue supports. I think that just fits better for something that's coming.
And then you have the different colored track in the tunnel. I think it's going to be a black track in the tunnel, which I hope that lives up to what the video looks like, because that would be really cool.
Yeah.
Larry, what about you? Any thoughts? Is this going to get you up to Canada's Wonderland next year? Maybe.
Yeah, it was definitely was the left field announcement out of all the ones on the list so far this year. And I know I have seen a few complaints, the fact that this is actually going to be like the first coaster to quote unquote ruin the mountain skyline. But I think it's something that this is a fourth roller coaster interacting with the mountain, which I don't think any other park has anything, a landmark object in the park that has so many coaster interactions with it.
Yeah. I can't think of, like, the only thing that I think that comes close is like Indiana Beach, but that's because like Indiana Beach to me feels like Roller Coaster Tycoon when you don't, like, you're just starting out and you don't understand what you're doing, and then you just build a carousel on top of a roller coaster.
That's what I thought when I was looking at all the renderings. I was like, oh my gosh, this is Roller Coaster Tycoon in real life. It's incredible. I mean, you just don't see that in North America, where parks generally have more room than something like a Blackpool, where they are so landlocked and they have so many coasters. So I'm so excited.
Coaster101 group trip to Canada next year. Thoughts?
Let's do it.
Okay. Let's start planning now, because we try to do this. I feel like I don't think we haven't done a trip. Definitely not since Evan started. I don't think we've done a group trip since like Shane started. He's been writing for the website since like what, 2019, 2020, 2018. We got to get back on this, guys. Come on.
I think Canada's Wonderland was the last one that we did. That was 2022.
And I couldn't go to that one.
Yeah, that was when I looked back at it too.
So okay, sorry. Yep, it's my fault. Anyway, if you guys want to, if anybody listening wants to join us at Canada's Wonderland next year, hit us up, email us, tweet us, Facebook us, whatever. And I think the only person who might answer that is Tyler, our buddy up in Canada. So Tyler wants to hang out. We're gonna probably get up there next year. So Tyler, we're coming for you. Larry did mention the out of left field announcement, and I want to. I think I can one up the left fieldness here. And this
Mm.
is kind of late breaking over the weekend in Waterloo, Iowa, home of Lost Island theme park, which I don't. I've been to Waterloo, Iowa. We've had Eric Birch, who's the park president of GM, on the podcast. Amazing park. Waterloo, Iowa is if you go to the middle of nowhere, you keep driving for like an hour, and then like 20 minutes later, you're going to come up on Lost Island theme park. It's what it feels like. And I was coming from Des Moines, so probably not the best. But Lost Island, they're getting an RMC Raptor coaster, which is, I think it's a slightly different variation than the Stunt Pilot and Wonder Woman versions. But John, you asked us the question. It's like, how is Lost Island still even open, let alone how can they afford an RMC coaster? And I loved this park when I went. It was so much fun. Maybe because there was nobody there, you felt like you had it to yourself. And they've got a world class dark ride. They've got Matogani, which came over from Sweden, where was it Liseberg, as Cananen or whatever it was.
Yep.
Don't come from my pronunciations. But what do we think about Lost Island? The name of the coaster, because I just said RMC Raptor, I haven't given it. It's called Fire Runner. They've been teasing it a little bit off and on all year. It was announced at an ACE conference. Larry, I'll bring you in first. What do we think about the unlikely matchmaking of Lost Island and RMC?
Yeah, it's. I know RMC wanted to sell these as complete packages for the smaller size parks, um, but this was not a park I was expecting to see one at, being it is so far away. I mean, its nearest competitor is Adventureland, and that is off of one of the major highways across the country, which I saw driving through to Utah this last week. So just this park being so far out, which I will mention, I did see a billboard for them on the highway there. So they are marketing.
They are advertising. I know there are people right now, and I think they had their season pass price come out, and some people said it was really high, but these are paying for season passes is how you afford a RMC coaster. That's kind of what I came down to it. I mean, John, Evan, you guys, I mean, what do you think here?
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, even though I'm questioning how they're able to afford it, it's a beautiful park. I mean, yes, they need trees, but those don't grow, overnight. But as far as you can just tell, the level of detail that went into it is really impressive. And given their lineup, I think this is a great fit, and I hope it brings more people. These are fun coasters, so I'm really excited for what this will do for the park.
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely adds a level of rides that people in that area probably never even dreamed of riding or know about. I think that what is it? That this is the 5th Raptor in the U.S. and they're all in pretty various parts of the country, which is really interesting on RMC's part that they didn't really double up in specific areas for these. And I've only ridden Jersey Double Coaster, but I've heard great things about the original model with Wonder Woman. So I think this will add a really great level of depth and hopefully pave the way, because this is their first ground up coaster, right?
Mm-hmm. It
So
is.
hopefully this is a good stepping stone for what's to come for Lost Island.
Yeah, it is I think you said it is the 6th, so you're close. I think honestly, and I don't mean to like bear this cross or carry this banner. Lost Island is the park that coaster enthusiasts are going to have to like other parks have families and things like that. Coaster enthusiasts are going to have to hammer down this park and get to it and keep singing its praises because it is a really, really good time. And by adding Fire Runner, I think that good time is only going to get better. So I mean, again, Madugani is there. Volcano, the Curse for the Golden Idol, amazing Sally Dark ride, fantastic. Now with Fire Runner, this park also like has their own beer that they like partner with a local brewery, and it's a good beer. Like there are a lot of really good things going for this park. I just think more people need to get out and get to it. Just
You've been to Waterloo beyond the park. Is this a tourist centric town? Like,
I
what is the
I think it's a tourist centric town for Iowa, which
okay?
to me is a different. I mean, the Birch family, they started this water park years and years ago. Like they were furniture salespeople. They sold the furniture business to build a water park because that's what the people of Waterloo they felt deserved. And with that, they wanted to build a theme park. So it is again, they have no corporate backers here. This is not a corporate park. It's family owned. They're just they're doing it. They're just I don't want to call it the American dream because like the American dream is not owning your own theme park except for like a lot of, semi irrational coaster enthusiasts. But they're crushing it right now and I think again, bottom line is more people need to get out and see this place. And I'm not knocking Waterloo as a destination. I again willingly on a work trip drove 2 hours one way, 2 hours back because I wanted to see this park and see if it had lived up to the positive hype, and it definitely does.
It
So
looks like a nice town.
it is. So I think again, if you're in Waterloo or again 2 hours from Des Moines, I don't know where it is in relation to other cities outside of Iowa because I've only gone down that highway one time. But go. It's such a good time. I
It's
just
it's only it's just a little under an hour from Cedar Rapids. So I think between Des Moines and Cedar Rapids, they can probably get a good chunk of
yeah, drive past some cornfields. You'll see a water park and some roller coasters emerging from the skyline. That's where you need to stop.
love it.
There we go. This has been my pitch for the Waterloo Board of Tourism chair. So Waterloo, if you're hiring, come get me. But moving on, we want to talk about. I think we can call this a family friendly coaster, but the Straddle coaster has officially made its way outside of the United Parks and Resorts and is going to Six Flags New England. And Evan is our resident New Englander on the panel here. What do we think about this straddle coaster coming to Six Flags New England?
Uh, well, I mean, I think it'll be a great fit. They have Catwoman's Whip and they have Gotham City Gauntlet, which are the two main family coasters. There's also Pandemonium, but I think they're, especially in quality, there is a very big drop off between Wicked Cyclone and Superman. So I'm hoping this creates a little more of a middle ground. I do have to say though that this is another steampunk theme coaster for Six Flags, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that the majority of their new additions with Cliffhanger and the whole area in Six Flags America is also steampunk. So I'm hoping for a little more variation in the theming down the road. But I mean, from what I saw of the POVs, it looks like a great family coaster. Looks a little slow from what I saw. So maybe it's on a hot day, it'll run a little better than what it looks like. But I think it's a great fill to the space there. And obviously, they didn't have a launch coaster before this. So it's one of a kind to the park.
Yeah, and I've ridden these things, or I've ridden the Dart Coaster at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, which was fun. I mean, I don't think it goes. This is going to get up to 45. I don't know how that compares to the Wave Breaker Rescue Coaster at SeaWorld San Antonio, but $45 or 45 miles per hour, not dollars. That's nothing to shake a stick at with when it comes to roller coaster speed. John, do you think New England enthusiasts are the ones who are complaining about this? Do you think they're being irrational?
I think so. Wavebreaker is 44, so about just about the same. I like Pony Express at Knott's Berry Farm. I just think it's such a unique, different sensation compared to just sitting. Um, I so wish that this type of ride had been what Big Bear Mountain was at Dollywood. I think it just really would have fit that ATV type experience, would have really set it apart. And I think that's what's going to be the selling point. Or I think that's what just that seating position, and I really like the layout. It's very compact. They fit a lot of track into this small space. So I think it might be a little bit of a sleeper hit. Um, to Evan's point, I think, depending on the speed, I think that could certainly kind of either push it over the edge of being a really great ride, or it might be too tame. So I think it's one of those things we'll just have to wait and see. But I think if it does well, I hope that we'll see more of these at other parks in the U.S.
Larry, have you haven't ridden one of these yet, have you? Have you been down to SeaWorld San Antonio or Busch Gardens Williamsburg to ride Dark Coaster?
No.
Or Darien Lake.
Or Darien Lake. No, that's different. The Moto Coaster.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't rode any of the motorbike coasters, even though I've been to Knott's and Darien Lake. Just timing and construction or downtime usually was my reason on not being able to ride them. But I think this is a fairly decent fit for Six Flags New England and a much better replacement for Goliath, which is where this is going into. So,
yep, it's Goliath, and then what was it? Buccaneer Bat? No, that was Six Flags Great America. We'll get to that in a second. I'm getting all my Six Flags confused. Classic me. Yeah, I think I went to Six Flags New England last year, and there was a couple of coasters I didn't fit into for one reason or another. That's another story for another day. I'm fat. It's the way it goes. But these straddle coasters, this new generation launch coaster, different from the Moto Coaster, but still kind of that same idea. They're fun, and I think a lot of families will eat up this new. I mean, it's the first new coaster at the park, and let's call it an actual roller coaster, because those Joker coasters, while they look cool, they're okay, but it's an off the shelf. This is like the first true new roller coaster at this park in like a decade. So since Wicked Cyclone opened in 2015, I think families in that area of the country are going to eat this up, and it's going to be a great win for them. But we're going to go down a little south, keep this train rolling a little bit. We're going to talk Rapterra, which is the launched B&M wing coaster at King's Dominion. Recently, I had the opportunity to go see this thing up close and personal, and holy cow, this is going to change King's Dominion. I think I'm shocked that this is kind of, I mean, not really shocked. This has been a long rumored thing for this area of the park, depending on what corners of the internet you frequent. But how crazy it makes that area look when you've got Reptilian there, you've got Tumbili there, you've got three just very dense coaster tracks right in that small Jungle X area. John, what do we think here? I know you're a big X Flight at Six Flags Great America guy. What are your thoughts on the wing coaster in general, and does King's Dominion have a winner on their hands, you think?
Yeah, I think they absolutely do. Yes, I love X Flight. I think it's very underrated, but I also very, very much like Thunderbird at Holiday World. So I think this is going to be incredible. I think this is definitely going to be the one that gets me back to King's Dominion. I haven't been in 10 years now, which is insane to say out loud, but I think these are so fun. Great, exciting for onlookers, obviously fun for riders. I think if it's themed right, I love the color, the element. It's just, I think it's going to be all around a really good addition for that park.
Wait, so you haven't been to King's Dominion in 10 years?
Right? I know.
No Twisted Timbers, no Tumbili.
Nope.
Oh my gosh.
I haven't been to Busch Gardens in 10 years either. So I think between this and the rumored coaster that Busch Gardens is going to be adding, I think I will make it a point to head up there in 2025.
50th anniversary for both parks.
Yes.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
There we go. They opened, I think I read, like 4 days apart. Side note, go check out the article on coaster101.com which Virginia park has the better coaster lineup. And let's BuzzFeed this. The results are gonna shock you with what I came up with. There we go. Evan, what about you? Are we you're not too far from King's Dominion. I mean, I think you've been more recently than 10 years ago. But, how do you feel like this is going to change the Jungle X, former volcano site, and kind of the surrounding area?
Yeah, I actually visited King's Dominion for the first time 2 years ago, and I was shockingly impressed with it. I went before the Grizzly retrack, so that's probably honestly in the area. It's that King's Dominion's number one on where I want to get to in 2025, within reasonable driving distance. So I think that this is the missing piece to their coaster lineup. I think Project 305 and Twisted Timbers. Twisted Timbers might be the best coaster on the East Coast. Um, Hot take.
That's
North above mid 95. I
that's
can't say.
that's
So it's a hot
take,
take,
man.
but
That
I
is a
was
take.
wildly impressed with how great that ride is. Um, and I think that this ride will be a huge hit. Having all three of those coasters in the even if you add in Flight of Fear and Project 305, that's like 5 coasters within like a 5-minute walking distance, which is awesome if you have only a half day to get through this park. And then the only thing that I feel like is missing from this, it does have the queue interaction, but it does need a really solid keyhole element, which I know Wild Eagle at Dollywood doesn't have that, and that's a really great ride that I went on a couple of years ago. But I think even if you had this flying through like a silhouette of a temple or something, just to add to that theme, it would be huge and like a real like GP pleaser.
I love that. I mean, I'm just now thinking. I'm like picturing the park in my head. And you say the 5 coasters within like a 2-minute walk. You got to add Anaconda to that. You got to add Backlot Stunt Coaster. I mean, you've got 7 coasters basically right on top of each other. And if you go to that, there's a spot in the parking lot where you can kind of look past Dominator. You can see Dominator, Woodstock Express, and then all of those coasters over on that area of the park. It makes for a really good Photoshop opportunity if you sit there for a while. That's for sure. Larry, I don't want to leave you out here. What are your thoughts here on Rapterra King's Dominion?
Yeah, this is I think since Gatekeeper, this is the biggest wing coaster to be built. Um, it's obviously not as big as Gatekeeper, but it's um, it helps filling the gap that Volcano was taken out very unexpectedly. People were very disappointed on that. Um, but I think this is going to help fill in that very quick, rapid launch that, looking back at Volcano's design, was not exactly exciting. Let's put it that way.
I think it was exciting enough. I will go back and say Volcano closing was still one of the busiest days ever in our website's history. So shout out to King's Dominion for burying that in a blog all those years ago, because we found it and nobody else seemed to notice. But that was really cool. But that launch was really fun, and plus you had the double launch. You swung out, you had the 90-degree turn, and then you launched up out of the volcano. I think it's really cool, and I think going back to Alpine Fury, if they can kind of have that same effect, that's again talk about a GP pleaser. That'll be one that people stop and look at, just like the Zamperla Nebulas, or just it'll be one of those things that people just stare at. Which, again, if any indication, when I was at the park the other weekend, people stopped and stared because they're like, "Oh, I want to go ride that one," and the track is like maybe a third done, or halfway done at this point. I'm like, folks, it's not open today, but good on you for trying. So we'll get there. I think spring, King's Dominion's pretty good, and there's a lot of track already on site, already going up. I mean, I would be shocked if this wasn't ready by King's Dominion's opening day. That's pure speculation on my part. I have no idea otherwise, but there was a lot of track that was vertical. The wing over was up. The dive loop, which I think I referred to as an Immelman on social media or the website. I'm sorry, I have not done the POV, the virtual POV enough to remember which is which. But this thing is it's gonna look amazing. And if you love green roller coaster track between Tumbili and Rapterra, you're going to love Jungle X in 2025. Um, there is one more kind of new coaster before we get into some parks that are supposedly going to open in 2025. I want to say supposedly they're going to open. We hope anyway. One more new coaster, and I think I've waited to hold this for last because none of us are sure how to actually pronounce it. And this is, of course, at Six Flags Great America outside of Chicago. It is a B&M dive coaster. I'm stalling because I don't want to pronounce it wrong. But we're going to call it Wrath of Rakshasa. I think that's close. Um, the first question you might ask yourself, because it's a very difficult name to pronounce, what is a Rakshasa? And luckily for anybody listening, I've Googled it if you haven't. Rakshasa, in Hindu mythology, is a type of demon or goblin. They have the power to change their shape at will and appear as animals, as monsters, or in the case of female demons, as beautiful women. They reside on Earth but possess supernatural powers, which they usually use for evil acts such as disrupting Vedic sacrifices or eating humans. So anyway, we got a people eater in more ways than one here at Six Flags Great America. I personally love B&M dive coasters, so I'm not the right person to ask this question. Do they don't deserve the hate they get in the coaster community, do they?
I
Dive
love
coasters.
them.
Yeah, I would say I enjoyed them. Yukon Striker is still one of my top coasters, just because it's that drop is just so straight down, and you don't get that cliff hanging feeling very much.
Right. And this is just it looks like an amazing layout. I think that was the one thing people were talking about. The layout was amazing. It is replacing Buccaneer Battle at Six Flags Great America. I think. Yes, right, John. You're
Yes.
the
Yep.
you're the Chicago
Yep.
local, home away from home park guy here. Um,
I have been trying to speak this coaster into existence for so many years because that is very much a landlocked park, so they have to get creative with how they fit coasters in. Like the fact that they were able to fit a ground up RMC into the plot of land that used to be home to Iron Wolf, one of the first B&M coasters, if not the first. So I thought this spot would be a prime location for a dive coaster, which can be pretty compact for a coaster of its size. Thought Buccaneer Battle was just such a waste of space, especially for a park that is, not a park that needs a water ride like that. I don't think, given the climate, and so I'm so excited. I love dive coasters, and I think this is going to be a, probably a top 5 coaster for that park, which has an impressive lineup.
It really does. And I know earlier on, let's see, we're going to date this a little bit. Earlier today on Instagram, so several days ago, if you're listening to this when this podcast releases, I think it was Nick who put together kind of this B&M dive coaster North America list. Um, Wrath of Rakshasa, I'm again going to butcher that pronunciation. It's one of only a couple with 7 across seating, which I think is a pretty unique seating arrangement. It's 180 feet tall with a 171-foot drop. It's also got the most inversions of any dive coaster on in North America, which I don't think I realized when this was announced. Because I heard the layout was good. I haven't really like traced the layout and realized what's happening here. But where do we think that dive coasters go in North America after this? Obviously you had Valraven. Valraven was the biggest for a while. Then it was Yukon Striker, and those two still might be the biggest right now. Um, yeah, Valraven,
Yeah,
Yukon Striker are the tallest. Now we've kind of gone back into this smaller, with Doctor Diabolical, Emperor, Iron Menace. we're headed back on the vertical ascent with I can't even say it. Wrath of Rakshasa. Do we think we're getting back into the giant, what I'm going to call hyper dive coasters, um, now that money is more plentiful post COVID? I think, are we going to get back into those seeing regularly 200-foot tall vertical drop coasters?
In the they released a few like park surveys to pass holders, but I thought maybe it was Kings Island. They threw out the idea of a giga dive. So I think that's next. I mean, if parks are willing to invest the money, like to have a 90-degree drop face down, hold you for 3 seconds above over 300 feet, I think that'd be pretty cool.
I, that's only after they add, what was it, like 3,000 feet of track and like to the Beast or whatever
Beast Part 2.
the Beast
Yeah.
Part 2. I saw that survey and I was like, you got to be kidding me. But that's why they put these surveys out, because maybe people want that. Who knows? Um, yeah, I think Wrath of Rakshasa. Um, again, B&M dive coasters, they're a ton of fun. We can call them people eaters. I think
It has good capacity.
Yeah.
Yes, it
Mhm.
has great.
Max Force is not a people eater.
This
It
is
is
true.
not. It is
So
why
again-
when I went there, it's why I bought Fastlane for it, because it was, oh boy.
Yeah, that is one that I will absolutely buy that one-time fast pass for. They're offering it because it's such a great. I love it. That launch is incredible. But hopefully with this, obviously it'll be very popular for those first few years. But eventually, once things kind of settle out, this will be a great uh, from a capacity standpoint.
Listen, and do we think it's going to not interact physically with, but like, is there going to be a joint storyline between Rakshasa and Demon, seeing as they're both now demons, and they're like right on
Maybe I'm
top of
just
each
glad
other?
they're keeping Demon.
Yeah.
If they hadn't put all that money into it recently, not all a ton, but they had given it some TLC recently, I would have been. Do I love Demon? Absolutely not. But it's fun. It's nostalgic. It's one of those things I have to ride it at least once when I go, because I feel like there's always the chance that it won't be there the next time. So I do wish I do wish there are some wish list things. I wish it was a little bit taller. I wish, and it's hard to, from concept art and animation, that it had, a tunnel or a little bit more interactions with the ground. I do think it's going to be quite the spectacle to watch, which I think is one of my biggest gripes with Max Force, is that launch is pretty much hidden. You can't really see it. So I think this is going to be great for just, again, for onlookers to watch, and hopefully the queue line, wherever it is, has good vantage point. So these are just fun to watch. I like watching these as much as I do riding them.
Yeah, I think the only thing I could ask for on the wish list is them to re-record the Demon theme music, like the original song, complete with melody and tune, but just put it in Hindi, and I think that would be just a lovely touch. But that's just me. Also opening in 2025, we've got some new parks recently on the podcast. We had Matt Huey, who's the vice president of Codaland. And I don't know if you guys have seen, Palindrome is basically complete. I haven't seen any videos or anything of it testing, but Matt said that was coming very soon if it hasn't already. And then they're also going to have Circuit Breaker when the park opens in 2025, which I am so excited. After, I don't know if you guys listened to the podcast with Matt, but talking to him, he was so enthusiastic about this park. And it's this level of enthusiasm that you see. It's also, from somebody like Eric Birch at Lost Island. You everybody wants to continue to grow, but when you're building these places from the ground up and you don't have like corporate backing and corporate overlords, it allows you this level of freedom and passion that I don't feel like exists very much in theme parks anymore. So
Yeah.
if there was a coaster between the two of them, that you guys were more excited to ride, is it Palindrome or is it Circuit Breaker?
I'd say it's palindrome for me.
Yeah, I think I'd probably get to go with palindrome too. I
Yeah,
mean,
just
tilt coaster is a nice concept, but it's a Vekoma. We'll see how it goes.
Okay. I mean, this is. I don't think you guys just want to end up in anybody's like video that your aunt sends on Facebook that's like, would you ride this coaster? And it's like, yes. The answer is always yes.
Eh. I think it's just because I like palindromes, the concept of the word. I think that's might be the um, partially what's. I mean, both of them are going to be amazing. I better be able to ride both of them when I go. So don't get me wrong. Never been to
Yes.
Austin, and I think this will be what gets me there.
mhm.
We're gonna keep it. We're gonna keep Codaland weird. We're gonna keep Austin weird. We're gonna keep John weird. So, no, not that he. Never
Not a
mind.
tall order at all.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's all good. And then last, but again, certainly not least, there's just this little small, tiny park opening in Orlando, off of International Drive and Universal Boulevard. They're calling it Epic Universe. 4 roller coasters, 5 coaster credits. These things, looking at this park through the lens of BioReconstruct on Twitter/X, is the greatest. It is so much fun. For somebody who tries to be as spoiler free as possible, I love seeing the videos and photos he posts from his helicopter, drone, plane, whatever he's flying above the Orlando area. I think the park just released on National Roller Coaster Day last week, kind of that first preview of Stardust Racers. This thing looks amazing. I'm sorry, like everyone's like, "Oh, it's gonna expose track," and it's like, shut up. Like these are the arguments that people in the Orlando theme park community are resulting to, because it's like they're worried about Disney World or whatever. It's like, why can't we just appreciate new things? And you've got Minecart Madness, you've got Curse of the Werewolf, you've got um, Hiccup's Wing Gliders, which before today I had forgotten existed, and I was looking at a POV. This thing looks like Slinky Dog Dash on steroids, and
Mhm.
I'm so excited for Epic Universe to open. Do you guys have Larry? I'll jump in with you. Do you have a favorite coaster that has been released from the Epic Universe previews?
I think I've been a big fan of Stardust Racers. Mostly that it's the elusive racing coaster, interactive racing coaster that maybe we might see a nice one every 5-10 years. Um, but also the fact it's not based off an IP; it's based on an original concept, which is also a rare thing to see these days. So for a Universal or Orlando area park.
Yeah, I think it's Stardust Racers, and then the, what is it, the Celestial Spin Carousel. Everything else is IP, but those two. And I mean, there are some other restaurants and things like that, but this is going to blow people's minds when it opens. I'm just, and maybe I'm believing the hype, and I'm a sucker for a good marketing plan and a good marketing strategy. But John, what about you? Do you have a coaster you're most looking forward to at Epic Universe?
Yeah, I think it's definitely between Stardust Racers and I don't know. I'm so intrigued by Minecart Madness. I think it's obviously not the most thrilling, but the boom coaster concept is so fascinating to me that I think partially because, yes, you've seen some glimpses of it on BioReconstruct and just, concept art, but I think it's going to be such a unique experience with the 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 illusion of the broken jumping over the broken track, and I think it's going to be a huge crowd pleaser. I do wonder about the capacity, but we'll worry about that another day. um so I don't know, it's between Stardust Racers and um Minecart Madness, and I think they're obviously completely different leagues, but both are going to offer something really unique to Central Florida,
Yep,
really the country.
I would agree. And Evan, what are you looking forward to most at Epic Universe?
I feel like Stardust Racer goes without saying, but um, Also, Minecart Madness. Especially, I've been hunting down for a POV from Japan because I think that one's been in testing for quite some time now. So I I'm a little hesitant to get spoilers from that, but it definitely is the most intriguing. Just something that we've never seen before on any type of coaster. If they could stick the landing, I'm just hoping it's as cool of a ride experience as it is an off ride. But even the werewolf one looks great. I mean, I also saw By Reconstruct post about he posted a video of it testing, and it did look a bit slow from the swing launch section, but I think that's intentional just based on what's hiding in the shed. So I think it's gonna be I think that might be the best theme coaster coming out of Epic Universe.
Yeah,
I
we
hope
have a
this shed is a little bit more eventful than the other shed. I think you guys know which one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Of course, but I'm glad we have a what's in the shed moment, and I believe this was the attraction with the concept art that has like the fully animatronic werewolf,
Yeti.
which it to me feels like a shot across the bow at their neighbors to the north, but we'll see what happens. I think if anybody can pull it off, it's the Universal creative team because they're just hitting home run after home run after home run with the exception of Fast and the Furious recently, but that's neither here nor there. Um, I again the Werewolf Coaster. I don't really like to spin, but that's going to be an amazing ride.
Yeah.
Minecart Madness also going to be. I still remember playing that level on like Donkey Kong Country for my Super Nintendo. Like it's going to be so much fun, and that celestial spin element on Stardust Racers, the high five element where you're like rotating over each other. Oh my gosh, that's going to be like after Velocicoaster opened, everybody loved the Mosasaurus roll. That celestial spin is going to blow people's minds even more. I feel like it's amazing, and so those are again very exciting. We can't wait for both Codaland and Universal Epic Universe to open in 2025. And before we wrap this up, I want to get you guys' thoughts because I've got some question marks here. There's some coasters that are mentioned as potentially opening in 2025 or beyond on RCDB right now. Depending on other corners of the internet, you may have seen some construction beginning. What are these? But what about these other coasters? What are we thinking here? Do we know? Six Flags Mexico, for example, like there was an announcement that they're getting a coaster. The only reason we know this is because they're not removing any trees. And the other one with photos on RCDB right now is SeaWorld San Antonio. Looks like they're getting a zero. Again, there's the ever present rumor of a new coaster at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, which I think John touched on earlier. What do we think about 2025 as it relates to like the best new coaster years in North America in recent memory? How do we think it stacks up?
It's probably definitely one of the most coasters we've had since pre 2020. Um, I think these are the perfect median on keeping them. They're not like tens of millions of dollars like some of the ones have been in the past. But they're good enough that you can tell that the budgets are spreading, especially with the Six Flags chain. The budgets are spreading more evenly across it versus this one park getting a $30 million. Meanwhile, this other park gets maybe a $2 million investment. So it's
And
good
that
to see this.
and that 2 million is benches
Yes.
and nothing but benches. John, Evan, what do you guys think? Are we thinking 2025 is going to be kind of one of those years we think about like the year 1999 or 2000 that's one of the better coaster years and like with all these new and innovative coasters coming out? How's 2025 going to stack up?
I think, well, first, assuming all of these open in 2025, that'll be a big determining factor. I think when compared to 2024, yes, it's going to be a really spectacular year. I think I'm hoping there will be some sleeper hits. The Quantum Accelerator, I think Alpine Fury is going to be amazing. So there's unique rides, which I think is really, I think that to me almost is what excites me the most in any year when you have a lot of either prototype or never before seen in the U.S. So I'm excited. I don't think it maybe in history books it won't be seen as the best, but I think it's going to be a really solid year.
Maybe we're just dealing with recency bias, and it's like we came out of the pandemic. We've had a lot of family coasters. Nothing wrong with family coasters, but that's been a large portion of the new coasters in recent years. Evan, what about you? Final thoughts here.
I was about to say that this might be the best year post COVID, but 2023 did have a lot of heavy hitters. They had Pipeline, Big Bear, Wildcats Revenge, Airy Force One. Then it kind of dropped off. Then you had Wild Mouse at Cedar Point, Dark Coaster. I think Tron opened 2023. Um, but I don't think this has quite the star power that 2023 had. But I think, like John was saying, there definitely are a lot of sleeper hits here, and it can also pave the way for even greater things to come in 26.
That's what we asked for. We just want, again, continued growth. Final question I've got for you guys. We've talked about a lot of coasters on the podcast. Larry, coming to you first. Number one most anticipated coaster for 2025.
I think it's going to be Alpine Fury, just because it's out of all the ones in that, it's the only like fully custom one that we haven't really seen a whole lot here, especially in North America.
Okay. I like that. John.
Oh, I think it's just because it's my, like you said, it's my home away from home park. I'm just gonna say Wrath. I'm gonna shorten it and just call it Wrath because I get it makes my cords hurt trying to say it. So I'm just gonna save my voice and say Wrath at Six Flags Great America. And again, I love the dive coaster. I love the park. It's just very nostalgic for me, and so I'm excited to finally get this dive coaster that I've been trying to speak into existence for years actually come to fruition.
And Evan.
I think it's Rapterra. I think they have the most riding on theirs, especially in being such a competitive region and trying to hold their own against the Hershey's and the Busch Gardens of that area. I think if they can get this right and make it like as great as it can be, I think they have a real winner on their hands.
Yeah, I gotta go with you on that one. I think Rapterra is my pick. Alpine Fury being a close second, and Wrath of Shaka Khan. Anyway, I knew I would do that once on the podcast. Sorry, but I think that would be third. Lost Island is great, and I love it anytime I can get a new coaster credit in my relative backyard that's 30 minutes away at Carowinds. So I got to throw Snoopy's Racing Railway a shout there too. But again, 2025 going to be a fantastic year for new coasters, and you're going to want to stay tuned to coaster101.com for all of the new and exciting coasters and content that's going to come out around the coasters and the construction and the openings and all that good stuff. So head to coaster101.com if you like to read. If you like to read things in a shorter form or look at pictures, head to social media. We are at Coaster101 anywhere you can consume the platform. So that's Facebook, Twitter/X, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Probably by the time this comes out, there'll be some other platform that we're on, but maybe not. Who knows? Um, if you're listening, make sure you're liking, rating, reviewing, subscribing, leaving 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, interacting with the show any way possible, telling people to listen. We're going to continue to put these out, whether you like it or not. So hopefully you do. Head to c101.co/tpublic, TEEPUBLIC, for the latest and greatest Coaster 101 merch. And last but not least, thanks to JMMB Entertainment for our theme music. Evan, John, Larry, Thank you guys. Let's do this again sometime.
Let's do it.
Thank you.
This time next year, 2026.
You're going to come on the podcast before then, right?
Maybe, if you'll have me. Hey, we might still be talking about some of these coasters in a year.
Yeah.
So.
We'll see.
Not.
Well, hopefully 2025 will be a little bit more successful, and also we'll see how the legacy Six Flags parks will go with the Cedar Fair management being in charge of it. See whether or not we're going to have the midsummer openings or the park opening dates for some of them.
We'll see what happens. I feel like Legacy Cedar Fair has been pretty good with those. So we'll just have to wait and see. But we will talk to y'all again soon. See ya.